My name is Christy Kane, and I am a licensed mental health practitioner. And tonight we're going to be covering one of my favorite topics, and probably one of the most difficult topics that we have as human beings. But it is the most important topic that we have as human beings because it one, makes us happy, and two, gets us in trouble. Okay? So we're going to talk about communication. So what is communication? What is that? When I say the word communication, what comes to your mind?
Honesty.
So honesty, okay?
Two-way talk.
Two-way talk, okay?
Dialogue.
Dialogue.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability, okay?
Body language.
Body language, okay? Okay? What else?
Opportunity.
Opportunity, okay? Good. Those are good adjectives. What else? What else do you think about when someone says communication?
Listening.
Listening, okay? Anything else? So we had some interesting comments. First of all, you identified that communication, you said body language, okay? So we communicate by how we act. Most definitely. Can you communicate without ever speaking?
Yes.
Yes, you can. We can communicate without ever speaking, right? Okay, so that's one form of communication. What else? What's another form of communication?
Verbal.
To actually say things. Verbal. You bet. We can say 1,000 things. Doesn't mean we're communicating, but we can definitely talk, right? Okay? So we have action, verbal. Any other ways of communication you think?
Written.
Pardon me?
Written.
Written. Put it in words. Okay? Anybody want to add anything else to this list? Okay? Now we talked about type and process a little bit. But now we're really going to talk about purpose. Communication always has a purpose. And if you think it doesn't, then you are not communicating. Human beings communicate for a purpose. We always do. We always communicate for a purpose. Now tell me some purposes that you have communicated in your lifetime for. Tell me some purposes that you've communicated for.
Selfishness.
Okay. Selfishness.
Understanding.
Understanding. Okay.
Resolving interpersonal problems.
To resolve interpersonal problems. Okay. What else?
To express love
To express love.
or feelings.
Express feelings. Okay. So, how many of you have had a purpose at one point in your life that you communicated for? Raise your hand. And how many of you have had times and situations when you had a purpose, you engaged in the communication, and it was effective? Raise your hand. And how many of you have had experiences where you've had a purpose, you've engaged in a process, and you wonder what the heck just happened? We all do. Every one of us in this room has had one of those experiences when we knew exactly what we were going to say or write or act. Matter of fact, I know human beings who rehearse it for 20 times. They'll go through it 1,000 times in their mind. They'll say it. They'll act it out. Then they'll go meet with whomever. They'll go through the process. And they'll walk out and go, what in the world just happened? The person went through the act and the process with a preconceived notion that whom they were going to deliver to would receive. Catch that? That whom they were going to deliver to was going to receive. The biggest problem in our communication is we assume what the other person is going to do. We assume they're ready for it. We assume they want to hear what we have to say. And we assume that they're going to process with us. And then we walk out of a room going, whoops, that didn't go so well. Because communication is not about a person. It is about the process. It's about prepping the process. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Because communication is based on two people. And I don't care who the two people are or how many the two people are. You may have a mission, a purpose, a destination, and fly and crash. Because you forgot to tell the people over here that you had a purpose, a mission, a destination, and you tend to arrive at 8:15 and they were expecting you at noon. And when you land at 8:15, they're pissed off, mad, angry, and they could care less if you got there. Do you follow me? Okay? Communication is all about a process that has a purpose, and you hope that you're going to engage the other people in the process. So I'm going to tell you a little story, and I want you to think about this story. Okay? Because one of the biggest issues with prepping for the process is knowing really why you're going to communicate. Because a lot of time when we communicate, we're not being honest with why we're communicating. We're playing a game. And games don't work among human beings. They just make people mad. So I'm going to tell you a little story, and I want you to watch the communication process through this story, and then I want you to tell me some of the things that took place in this story and what the emotions were, okay? We have a mom, and she stays home during the day and takes care of the kids. And we have a dad that he goes to work. Well, the mother has a meeting that she needs to attend to. So she has told her husband, I need you to come home and take care of the kids while I go to my meeting. The husband walks through the door after he's been at work. The house is clean. Dinner is cooked. He's given some very simple instructions. Would you please feed the children, have them in bed by 8 o'clock because they have school tomorrow, and I'll see you when I get home. Okay? Got the instructions? Feed the kids, have them in bed on time. So wife goes off to her meeting. Everything's going well. She comes home, walks through the door at 10 o'clock. Dad is awake. Children are laughing and running around the house. Kitchen is a mess. And the mother hits the ceiling, walks in the house and says, what in the world do you think you're doing? I gave you 2 flippin' simple instructions. Feed the kids, have them in bed. You can't even do that. Husband turns around and says, fine, do it yourself next time. I'm not going to help, and walks out the door mad. Now what's going on here? What has just happened? This is a communication process. The wife gave some simple instructions, right? The kids were fed. They weren't in bed. And the husband responds and leaves. What's going on in this communication situation? Tell me feelings, emotions, what's going on?
Communication breakdown.
Well, yep, obviously something's happened, right?
Yeah.
She made an assumption that because she gave instructions that they would be followed, she came home and they weren't.
Ah, she had expectations.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Expectations create feelings and emotions, right? So yes, she had some preconceived, pre-set up expectations. Okay? What else is going on in this communication story?
She walked in mad, and before she had a chance to ask why aren't the kids in bed, why is the house a mess, she just blew up first.
Ah, so from your perspective, she reacted when she saw the physical environment she walked in. Okay? So her communication may have changed. She reacted. Maybe made some assumptions. Okay?
With expectations come reactions. So if she had an expectation that it was going to be clean and this and that, she probably would have first maybe been a little surprised but been happy. But if she was expecting that it wasn't going to be done, she already was under the preconceived notion that she was going to be upset.
So what you're saying a little bit in this story from your perspective is you're seeing that if we have expectations set up, we can create a situation where we're going to be either happy or disappointed, which comes emotionally charged, right? What other feelings are going on here? in this little story, in this communication? Ideas. Come on, what's going on?
Well, I think that I've had that very thing happen
Okay.
numerous times.
All right.
Numerous times. It's selfish because it's going down what you need, what you want, what needs to happen for you,
Okay.
not necessarily for the husband and the kids. And so you have this, I've got to have this done so I can have this done, that I can have this done, and he has not met my needs and how I needed things done. So you just blow up, mad comes, and all of a sudden everything crumbles.
Okay, so you're talking about you're looking at it from the woman's perspective of she has set up expectations that her husband did not meet, and therefore she's disappointed.
I used to come home after working an all-night shift, and my kids were in bed, but they'd be in their play clothes.
And so you wanted them in their PJs.
Well, hello.
Okay.
Should not every man think that that's
Men.
what's the appropriate thing?
I like that little terminology there. Should not every man think. All right, so
Yeah.
right, so
And then
let's
they just get up and the rest of the day play in those clothes.
Clothes.
And my husband thought that was a great idea.
yeah. different communication perspectives, different expectations. All right, so now I'm going to talk about this story for a minute, and I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself in a communication situation. All right, because what happens is we react. I talked about the fact that we set up the stage and then the story doesn't turn out the way we want it. Okay? Well, part of the reason is because we're not looking at the stage we set. Okay? So now we're going to look at this. So when the wife came home and the house wasn't clean and the kids weren't in bed, what story, what emotion is she feeling? Now we've acknowledged anger, we've acknowledged frustration, that's a secondary emotion. She cleaned the house, remember? She gave the husband some simple instructions. So what is her emotional paradigm right now?
I think that the husband says, I've worked my 8 hours. Now I have to come home and I have to clean house and put the kids to bed.
He might be thinking that. But I want you to go back to her. She's walked in the door. The home is a mess. The kids aren't in bed. What do you think she's feeling?
Hurt seat.
Okay, she is feeling rejected and unloved
And unappreciated.
and unappreciated. Okay, but we're all quick to respond in anger in our communication or frustration. But if she stopped for a moment, instead of firing at the husband and said, wait a minute, what am I feeling when I walk through the door? What is the house being a mess, the children not being in bed, making me feel? The communication for her is, I feel unloved. I feel not appreciated. I feel rejected. So that's her paradigm right here. So let's stop for a moment. Now let's take the husband. He worked all day, like you said. He came home, he took care of his kids. He's had a wonderful evening playing with his kids. He doesn't get this chance very often. He's all happy, life's great. And instead of getting a thank you, he gets, what the heck are you doing? And immediately, what do you think is his paradigm communication right here? Guilty. I am sorry. It immediately hits first. He is guilty. Did his wife ask him to have the kids in bed? You bet. He feels guilty, he feels accused, and he feels unloved and rejected. Okay? Now, instead of processing these emotions in a communication paradigm, they immediately respond with secondary emotions: anger, frustration, blame. Now, what happened that evening? Did they have a nice resolvement? No. The husband left. Obviously, the wife probably put the kids in bed. And who knows, maybe they didn't talk to each other for a while. Anybody ever seen this in your life? Ha ha ha, yeah, right. You're shaking your head no, yeah, right. All right, so let's back it up. So what happens is this. When we are emotionally sound in our communication dialogue, the wife comes home and she sees the house is a mess. The kids aren't in bed. And she says to the husband, you know, we need to talk about this, but right now I'm going to help you get the kids in bed, and then I need to explain to you some of the things I'm feeling. Now, is that going to make the husband mad? No, he's going to say, okay. So they're going to take the time, they're going to put the kids in bed, they're going to clean up the kitchen, and then the wife's going to have a moment where she's going to be able to say from her emotional communication base, you know what, dear, I really appreciated it when you watched the kids. But when I spend all day cleaning the house, and I ask you to do something, and it doesn't happen, it makes me feel like you don't love me. Now, do you think the husband's going to storm out in anger and tell her where to go and how to get there when she says that? No, because she's being truthful in her communication paradigm. She's firing from an emotion of, this is how I feel. These are my feelings, and they're raw. Now, we don't like to take that risk very often as humans. We would rather fire. We would rather cover up. When we feel guilty, instead of admitting it, we'd rather blame the person next door. Because it takes risk to take the mask off. We all walk around with communication masks. We all pretend everything's just fine when nothing's fine. I had a professor when I was getting my master's degree, and I'll never forget this. He was teaching the class, and he made the comment, you know, I could be at home, and if I'm yelling at my kids and I pick up the phone, I don't go, hello, welcome to the Jones house. He goes, what do you want? And we all went, he goes, because I'm real. If I'm mad, I'm going to be mad. And I went, okay. But we all walk around with these fake communication masks. Oh, everything's fine. I can't stand you. Oh, everything's fine. It doesn't work. Communication is a raw paradigm emotional experience. And if you can't get there, you can't be successful. Communication is a raw emotional experience that you have to be able to risk. So when you're going through the process of setting up the stage, there isn't a stage to set up. There are feelings for you to look at. How am I feeling right now? Why do I want to communicate this? Am I communicating my anger, or am I communicating my feelings? Am I stepping back for a moment and saying, do I really see the big picture? Should I wait to communicate? Do I know what I feel? But we don't oftentimes in the communication world. We fire and we fire and we fire and we fire. And then we walk out of a corporate boardroom, or we walk out of a meeting with an employee, or we walk out of a situation with our spouse, and we go, they don't understand me. What the heck is wrong with them? How come they can't get it? Well, maybe you're not communicating from the emotional base. Now, the risk of communication is always this. The person you're talking to has to be a receptive individual. Two-way street. And quite frankly, you're going to have situation in the communication world when you explain your emotional rawness and you take the risk, you will have times when people say what? Too bad. And they put it right back in your face. Those are the type of people you don't want to be with. Those are the type of people you don't trust. Those are the type of people you back away from emotionally. Okay? Because if they're not willing to take the risk and be raw, then why do you need to expose yourself to that? We don't need to be abused as people. Okay? But communication has to be raw. And we like surface. We love surface all the time. As human beings, we talk surface, and then we have all these people growing up who say, I'm never emotionally understood, I'm never emotionally accepted. Well, because you never emotionally trust. Okay? But you have to really understand what it is you're going to fire here. What it is that you really, really feel. And then communicate what you really feel. It's one thing to say to somebody, you make me angry. And it's another thing to say to somebody, that really hurt. When you did this, that really hurt. Because then they have to own it. Then you have to own it. And then you have to come to resolvement. But it's so much easier to just say, oh, you pissed me off, go away. Because then you take no risk, you get nowhere but frustration and anger. Okay? So communication is the most important thing we do as humans. It's something we do that no other primate can do. Okay? It is something we do nobody else can. But do you communicate from the right level? So ask yourself that tonight when you're thinking about communication. Am I honest? Do I really communicate from my levels of feelings, or do I surfacely float? Because if you surfacely float, you'll have surface interaction and surface relationships. But if you want deep, intimate connection, you're going to communicate from feelings. So I want you to ask yourself these questions. Whenever you get into a situation and you find that you're angry and that you're frustrated, I want you to go through those questions. Do I feel unloved? Do I feel rejected? Do I feel guilty? Do I feel loved? Do I feel safe? Does this feel right? All right? If you will back out when you're in the middle of a communication that isn't going well with either party, if both will back out for a second and say, okay, where am I firing here? Where am I firing? Am I firing because I'm feeling threatened? Not a good time to communicate. Am I speaking because I feel safe? Great time to communicate. Am I saying what I really feel, or am I saying what I think you should hear? There's a difference. Did you catch that? Am I saying what I really feel, or am I saying what I think you should hear? Too many times as a society, we fire on what we think you should hear instead of what we are feeling. Okay? The best way to feel safe, the best way to connect to human beings is raw emotional truth. It's the most amazing experience you'll have, but it's also the most frustrating if you're not willing to take those risks. And don't do it with someone you don't feel safe with. Okay? So I want you to think about that when you're communicating with people. Don't set up a stage. And don't engage unless you're going to be raw and truthful. And you can trust this side. I don't choose to be around some people because they don't deserve me. Okay? Because I deserve someone who's going to respect me and love me and treat me amazingly because I am amazing. Now, I don't mean that conceited. I want everybody to walk out of this room and believe that they are the most amazing person. Because mediocrity is everybody in the world. Don't be mediocrity. Be amazing. When I communicate, I want to communicate amazingly. I want you to know how I feel. I want you to know what I think. I want you to know you can trust me. And that's what you want in a relationship. That's what you want to feel. All right? You want to be better when you're done than when you started. You want to be understood when you finished. Raw, not phony. And the best way in the world to communicate is face to face. Looking in each other's eyes, and if you even get to hold someone's hand, that's even better. You ever try to be angry at somebody who's trying to give you a hug or hold your hand? It's pretty tough. Okay? So think about those communications, all right? Thanks for letting me come tonight, and you guys have a nice evening.